everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alexis, a blind author and content creator, and today I am reviewing Electric Idol. Just a reminder, I did put it in at the end of last videos of the last video, but I did make a mistake when I said that Electric Idol was going to have Helen. It is the third book, generally speaking. So yeah. Anyway, welcome to today's video and this review. But before we get there, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you are looking for fun and at times pretty nuanced reviews, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so that you're aware of when I post videos. If you'd like to see my writing, you can find the links to my website and Substack in the description. You can also find links to my books if you're interested in supporting me, generally speaking, by either buying my books in ebook and audiobook form in your favorite retailers, or you can buy the ebook directly from me on Ko-fi, where you can also tip me. And if you're interested in beta reading services, specifically to critique your unpublished manuscript, email me and we can discuss from there. And without further ado, because I actually don't have any more things to say until we go to the other side, enjoy the review, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, time to talk about the second book in the Dar Olympus series. Another one I'm excited about. I still gave it 3 stars, but I'm still excited for it because I gave the first book also 3 stars, and I'm pretty sure I gave the prequel 3 stars too. But I'm excited to talk about it because I've really been enjoying these, and you know, these are not like, I think these are like candy, and I've just been enjoying it a lot. I'll be reading the 3rd book eventually, and I'm pretty sure it has Helen in it, so this will be fun. So here's the synopsis, and then we're gonna talk about the things I liked and, I don't know, things that could have been done better. He was the most beautiful man alive, and if I wasn't careful, he was going to be my death. Okay. A scorchingly hot modern retelling of Psyche and Eros that's as sinful as it is sweet. In the ultra-modern city of Olympus, there's always a price to pay. Psyche knew she'd have to face Aphrodite's ire eventually, but she never expected her literal heart to be at stake, or for Aphrodite's gorgeous son to be the one ordered to strike the killing blow. Eros has no problem shedding blood, but when it comes time to take out his latest target, he can't do it. Confused by his reaction to Psyche, he does the only thing he can think of to keep her safe. He marries her. Psyche vows to make Eros' life a living hell until they find a way out of this mess. But as lines blur and loyalties shift, she realizes he might take her heart after all, and she's not sure she can survive the loss. Okay, there is one teeny tiny thing that's wrong with this synopsis. She doesn't vow to make his life a living hell. Eros convinces her that this is the best way he can protect her, but and while they don't fully like each other right away, not like each other, but they don't, they're not always on the same page, she doesn't really swear to do that. Psyche is represented to be a kind character. So what is with this misleading part of the synopsis? I don't like it. I really don't like it. Anywho, let's talk about the things I like, because there are a lot of things to enjoy in this book. First of all, I really like the forced proximity aspect of this. This was just fun for me. Forced proximity is always great in romance. I think that there were some things that in a sweet romance I don't fully like the idea that that he makes her sleep in the same bed with him, though she does not want to for some time. Uh, Supposedly to get her used to him touching her so that she doesn't flinch when she does in public, but he kind of manipulates her into doing that. That I didn't like. Again, I really think that Hades and Persephone had a better romance because there was no manipulation between them. It was just kind of like it was kind of cute, and it was like, okay, here's the deal, and they made a deal and they both knew it. And while there was a deal here between them and they were both kind of aware of it, I think there was a little manipulation with him because he wanted to have her in his bed, so he used ways to manipulate her for some time. And I do not like that. So those are things I find annoying. But throughout it all, though, most of their romance is actually quite healthy. That was just like one of the things I just did not like. Um, Everything was pretty consensual. Everything was just, it was fine. Um, so yeah, I that's one of the things I just didn't, I didn't, I didn't like. But other than that, there were a couple of other things I did enjoy. So, for example, I really liked their dynamic. Their dynamic was really interesting because, by the way, I'm gonna go on to some broad spoilers from here on out. Basically, their dynamic was really interesting because they met at a party where Demeter, her mother, was trying to marry her off to the new Zeus, because in the last book, again spoilers, in the last book it kind of ends with the original Zeus dying. The previous Zeus wanted to marry Persephone, and her mother Demeter was more than happy to let that happen. And she apparently had a plan. Like literally, she told Persephone something along the lines of, "If you would have only played good little wife for a little bit, or whatever." And the whole point was because the other Heras, but she didn't want to. Persephone didn't want to marry Zeus because the other Heras all died, and while it could not be proven, he was definitely suspected of killing his previous wives. So, yeah, Runaway reminds me a little bit of Ash Princess, where she was meant to marry, where Theodosia was going to marry this other dude who did something similar, but eventually, because she told the prince and he asked his mother for help, he ended up marrying this other woman who then became a little more somewhat loyal to Crescentia, and so it was kind of interesting. Uh, I just that's kind of what it reminded me of for some time. Anywho, the so that was kind of like that, right? But then Hades went to confront Zeus because he got the support of other people. Persephone managed to make a deal with her mother that she would get to remove Zeus. Basically, he would be getting support from the majority of people, and they would support him, and in exchange, Demeter would have Hades with her during 6 events of her choosing, 6 calendar events of her choosing, which, while Hades may not support her to the public, it shows an alliance. But then it ended with Hades accidentally killing Zeus and Demeter cleaning up the murder, and it was just said that it was an accident where he accidentally fell out the window. But we know that what happened. Yeah, there is murder and power climbing in this series. Listen, if I'm gonna say it, this series is like, okay, so I've complained a little bit about category romance, especially contemporary romance, being very soap opera-esque, and because of that, the drama just keeps intensifying and intensifying, and they have like, it has like that soap opera plot, but in book form, and that's how you know like everything's gonna happen, all the drama. This is very Katie Roberts' writing so far, like in this series, is also very soap opera-esque. However, this is good soap opera where the characters are developed in a way that we like, or at least that I like, and the characters don't feel like cardboard boxes just following a desired plot. I mean, yeah, they follow a plot, but they're not, but it feels real. Like there are contrivances, yes, but the contrivances don't feel like everything is, super plot convenient or contrived. Like it doesn't feel forced, if that makes some sense, right? And because of that, I just find myself like, okay, I prefer this kind of soap opera over over the kind that I found in other contemporary romance, basically. So yeah, there's murder, there's power climbing, there's a bunch of things. But yeah, it ended with that, and now him and Persephone are happy. But now we have Psyche, her sister, and Eros. So they meet at a party where again, she's Demeter is again trying to marry her daughter to him. And then she excuses herself for some time because Aphrodite is also trying to because Aphrodite is the matchmaker in Olympus, and she is trying to basically introduce him to someone else for him to marry, and he's not paying that much attention. But since they're all distracted, she's like, okay, I'm gonna go, and she leaves, and she ends up kind of bumping into him, and it turns out he's injured. So she helps him with his injury, which he finds a little bit surprising. And yeah, that's kind of how they go. But because of Demeter's uh, blatant like power, like wanting power, or her blatantness for power, Aphrodite now wants her daughter dead, because while Demeter is hungry for power, she also is caring for her daughters in her own twisted way, reminding me of other things. But you know, in her own twisted way, she cares about her daughters. So she basically she basically is like, okay, so she wants her heart, and he's like, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'll get it done. So he does. He ends up trying to figure out what to do, and he asks what's her name? Dude, I forgot her name. Hang on. Oh, here we go. He ends up asking Hermes to send a message, and they end up meeting in this place. They end up meeting in like this like really shady bar. And so, not to be interrupted, she ends up deceiving people into believing that she is with Hermes, though Hermes has another person pretend to be her, basically. And she basically made it easier so that if she is killed by Eros, no one would look for her, because people can't pin it on him, because she was supposedly with Hermes. But when he was gonna try to make it like not so bad for her, if you will. Like he wanted to make it so she didn't feel so much pain, and he attempted to do that. But then by the end, like, because she showed up, and she's like, okay, you want this whole thing, because there's like, when they were because they were spotted together, and because they were spotted together, people thought they were star-crossed lovers. So she's like, okay, you want my help getting rid of this kind of attention, no problem, I'll help you. And he is, to some degree, somewhat shocked that she came to help him with this kind of stuff. And in the end, though, he can't actually hurt her. So he's like, listen, the only way it can work is if I marry you. And at first she's like, somewhat shocked, like, what? Marry you? Like, she is shocked. And she was able to, like, they eventually agreed to do this. And that's kind of how it starts. And then from there, there's like a there's a what is that called? There's a cute little affair that comes between them. And they have like they start realizing, like, from the beginning they're attracted to each other. So from the beginning they're like, they're very much attracted to each other, and they're like, okay, like I'm here for it, like I'm here for it, and they're up for it. So because of that, they they're definitely in for that, and they develop a thing, because we find out that also that Psyche cannot associate sex basically with emotions, so she doesn't usually have a one-time thing, and eventually she was planning to do that, just a one-time thing, but that didn't quite work out, and they just have like a full like they just have sex, and then they realize that they love each other eventually, and it is very cute. It is adorable. Eros is the most an adorable love interest, the most adorable love interest. Like, he and Hades are great. I love it. But they develop a strong connection as they're trying to solve the imminent problem where Aphrodite is still trying to kill her. She still has a hit on her, and I appreciate it. It was really interesting. So this brings me to the to something I've been wondering about. Because there's a lot of sex, yes, but I wonder, would this also translate to cozy romance? And I say this because most romance have both internal and external problems, and this one does too, but to not to the same degree that other contemporary romances do. This one actually does this stuff better. Um, but basically, I asked this because when I look for what would make I looked for like what's a cozy romance or whatever, and one of the things I found was that the difference is that it's not necessarily about the characters. Like, it looks like they're healthy, but the conflict in a cozy romance is external, and that is kind of what I see here, that it is an external conflict and not it's mostly external, but not as it's there are some internal things that are mentioned, but there's mostly external conflict. And I wonder if this, while there is erotica elements, and while I can see it as in erotic romance as well, would this also qualify as a cozy romance? If you have read any, let me know. I'd appreciate it. Um, the other things, now to talk about things I really liked, I again love the conversations about sex and kink, and how they're just like, yep, these are things we like. Like, these are just things we enjoy. Deal with it. Don't care. Enjoy your time. Like, these are just things we like, and I love that healthy conversation, as well as the talk about body image, and how, unfortunately, sizing for everyone is not great, because it's not always inclusive. They look for very specific kinds of people, and clothes are not made for everyone all the time. So I really appreciate that conversation for body image, and how Psyche is like, I've gotten like I it took a while for me to accept my body, but it is mine. And what I really like is that she is an influencer, and she has a particular public persona that she builds. And what I really like about Demeter is, like, I know you have a plan. You are the most like me. And I'm like, this is interesting, because what we have is, I think Persephone also is similar to them, where she has created an image of a socialite girl, but then she also has created an image. Not Persephone. I'm sorry. Also, Psyche has also created an image of the kind of person people think she is in public, and it's to a point where it's like, when in public, it's fruity drinks and wine that she likes, for example. And then, but what we have is that Callisto and Eurydice aren't playing the same games, is what we're told. That Eurydice is genuinely just a sweet person whom was sheltered by her sisters a little, and Callisto will probably stab you. And I love her for it, which surprised me a little. Well, it didn't surprise me so much that she agreed to marry Zeus at the end. It was kind of like, because then she also found out what happened with Psyche, and it was like Callisto was like, you and Persephone have been taking care of us for way too long. I'll handle this, and she ended up agreeing to the marriage that Demeter wanted in order to protect Eurydice, because Eurydice would have been the next one. But what we find out also is that Psyche can be very petty, and you know what? I love petty women. Petty women are good. We need more petty women in stories. Can we do that? Can we do both petty women and also strong female friendships? Can we do both? See, I love those, because then we can have both. We can have the best of both worlds. We can have the petty type and the good female friendship type. I like both of those more often. And basically what we find out, because Eros believes himself a monster throughout the story, all because of Aphrodite. And this is where I want to say, content warning for, I don't know how to phrase this, so I'm going to say narcissistic parent, forcing, narcissistic parent who just wants their child's attention, like, always. That's, like, the best way I can phrase it. Like, she manipulates her, Aphrodite manipulated Eros for the longest time to doing what she wanted for whatever reason. And now he is her knife, and he kills or does whatever she wants to people that that she doesn't like, basically. So, that is just like, I don't know how to phrase that content warning, but I did my best. But basically, we have him believe he's a monster or whatever, and she starts to empathize with him and show him empathy and show him kindness and stuff like that. But she's like, and one of the things that he revealed, and she's like, hey, do you remember a couple of years ago that there was these videos of Ares or whatever? And he's like, yeah, that was you. Like, he was like, explain that was you. And like, she's like, yeah, he wouldn't leave Eurydice alone. And so I blasted them out. And basically what we find out is that Demeter was again looking for power. She's like, an alliance with Ares would be great. And he liked Eurydice, and she had no issue letting him, I guess, court her or just follow her around. Which, Demeter is a twisted kind of parent. A very twisted kind of parent. So, yeah, it is very complicated. But I really enjoyed this kind of exploration of power and parents, and particularly power with women. But honestly, there is one thing I love about Demeter. Specifically, there are two things. She is a very protective mom who would kill anyone who hurts her daughters. But also, at the end, the epilogue, the one thing that Eros is nervous about is having dinner as a family, because they have like Sunday dinners every time, and he is extremely nervous about it. And one of the ways that he finds out that Demeter has recognized him as part of the family, because she added the wedding picture, like their wedding picture, next to Persephone's and Hades. So she added that wedding picture. Then, and eventually he and Hades sort of talk, and it's like, yeah, it's a bit awkward at first, but it gets better, it's good, especially when they allow you to help. And by the end, they're eating, right? And Hades is like, we'll take care of the dishes, right? And you get to meet her, smart boys. That was beyond wonderful. I appreciate that was lovely. That was great. But yes, I appreciate a conversation about sex and body image, and I just loved everything else of it. 3 stars. It didn't feel like a 5-star, but definitely 3 stars. I absolutely enjoyed it. And I, you know what? If you're looking for like candy type reading, I think Dark Olympus kind of fits the bill. I mean, one could argue that other contemporary romance do it too. But the ones I've read, make me cringe and they make me want to scream and complain. I'm kind of glad I'm reading, well, I guess what you could say somewhat contemporary romance with a few fantastical settings that that don't make me scream. And as for the retelling of Psyche and Eros, I actually don't know. I'm not familiar with this retelling, but there are probably just like parts of it are probably in it. Like you can probably see hints of it. I wouldn't say it's an outright retelling. There are probably hints of it. Like for example, with the first one, Neon Gods, there are hints of the Hades and Persephone myth. So she ends up, but it's a lot. So she ends up in the underworld. But the original Persephone and Hades myth involves him kidnapping her to the underworld, and she ends up eating these pomegranates that end up making her have to stay 6 months. There are hints of it where she ends up in the underworld with him, but their safe word is pomegranate. But there is no but it's not in I wouldn't say it's a complete retelling. I would say it's kind of there might be hints of it, but that's about it. There probably are just hints of it here, but I don't know. I'm actually not familiar with this, and I did not do much research. I'm going to try to do some research when I edit this video, and then future me can let you know what I find. But for now, I'm going to go. 3 stars, absolutely recommend. What did you think of Electric Idol? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? What other books do you like by Katie Robert? Currently, I'm in this series, but I'm more than happy to look at others. There's another one that seems to be about Disney villains. It's a series. I think the first book is called Desperate Measures. So I'm interested in that, and I'll read it. Although it's weird. It has to do with Jasmine and Jafar, and I'm worried about reading it. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'll on for the next review.
Speech unmuted.
Don't tell me.
QuickTime Player. Movie recording window. Stop recording button.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'm going to now take a little bit more of your time. So I recorded this review before I read a collection of Beauty and the Beast fairy tales written by Heidi Ann Heiner, who I don't know much about, but it sounds like she is some type of scholar, I think, or at least it's edited by. Maybe I shouldn't say written, but definitely edited by. Sorry. She seems to be some type of scholar of sorts, or at least studies the subject of fairy tales and things in that form. But I mentioned this because this collection has a bunch of Beauty and the Beast fairy tales and a bunch of bridegroom tales as well. And I specifically mention this because in the introduction, it is, she says that the Eros and Psyche myth, specifically though, she calls it Cupid and Psyche, which is about, the story is about the same. I think the difference might be the Roman names, but the story that I'm about to tell you is basically the same, from what I can see. It inspired Beauty and the Beast, and I can definitely see it where if I were to, like in the Beauty and the Beast tales. But I bring this up because that was actually my very first like engagement with this myth. Like, this is the first time that would be the first time I actually ended up reading this myth, and it happened after I recorded this review. So I want to talk about it and take a little bit of a minute to do a little bit of analysis and from the vague memory I have of this book and everything in between. So the myth is about a young woman who it starts off with this king and queen who have 3 daughters, and all of them are really beautiful, but the youngest is the most beautiful. And people in like even from countries far away begin to come, and they give her the same type of recognition that they would give essentially Aphrodite or Venus. And they give her this type of recognition to such a degree that they no longer worship Aphrodite in her temples. And out of jealousy, Aphrodite has Eros bring essentially orders him to do to make her fall in love with the ugliest creature, and for her to have a terrible life, essentially. So I'm going to, I believe Eros and Cupid, I would assume, follow a similar they have a similar thing, whether they're Greek or Roman, but essentially at the very least Cupid has this like bow and arrow there. He shoots it at someone and they fall in love with whomever the person would be. So that is something to note. So what happens though is that eventually this is found, and Apollo, though, gives a prophecy to the parents after some events where she hasn't gotten proposed to. And the prophecy is that she should be placed up on this rock and she should be dressed in mourning, and they do. And then she is led into this house, or like this palace, and she ends up being married to someone that she is not allowed to see. And that is, of course, Eros or Cupid. And he warns her 3 times that her sisters are going to try to counsel her or influence her not to do great things, specifically to counsel her to see him. But she still wants to see them, and he allows it. He is convinced by her love and stuff, and he allows her to see them, but asks her to not reveal anything about him. The sisters become jealous and envious due to her current to Psyche's current status, and they visit her 3 times, the same amount of times that he essentially warned her about this. And eventually the way that they come up with for her to reveal to find out what's happening, and for her to end up in a terrible position, is that they make up that people have said that they saw a serpent coming down almost like toward the valley, if I understand it correctly, and that's the one who is sleeping with her. And at this moment, by the way, I should say that she is pregnant and is expecting his child right now. And she's and they essentially they count on her motherly or maternal love to convince her to figure out who she's sleeping with, and they tell her it's a serpent, so cut off his head, and that they'll marry her to someone eventually, right? And so she ends up they tell her to take this lamp and this razor, the razor being to cut off the head, and that when he is asleep, she should, look at him and stuff. And she does actually end up obeying. And she sees him, and she immediately is like, oh, this is great. And I think she picks up the version I read, she picks up the quiver and arrows and accidentally pricks herself with one of the arrows, and she fully falls in love with him. And in her haste to show him affection, the oil of the lamp, a little bit of oil falls on his shoulder, and he is wounded, and he just leaves without saying a word. For a little bit, he's supposed to leave without saying a word, and he says, "This is what happens. You should have listened to me." Essentially, I should note that in these myths, women are usually portrayed as stupid. Personally, I find that they're usually portrayed as easily influenced. They're portrayed as easily influenced, naive, and stupid. And so the palace, the house, everything disappears, and she ends up going on this quest to get back her lover. The first thing she does is let her sisters know what happened, and they, upon realizing who she was married to, they go to the same place and ask to be made his bride, and then they jump off this valley and end up dying. That's literally it, because they essentially, the reason they specifically are jealous is just that she has a better status than them, in that they are married to these old men who they have to tend to, while Psyche is attended to. That's the big reason, and they want to take everything away. And she goes, I'm not going to go too much on these details, but she goes on this quest. Eventually, when Aphrodite finds out, she's angry and she yells at her son, like essentially saying like, how dare you disobey me, and all that fun parts. And she's enraged, but also keeps him in a chamber because he's also grievously wounded, physically, and of course he's heartbroken. And where Psyche tries to find shelter, she does not get it in any of these temples because Aphrodite is angry, and she essentially asks another god because this tale that I read uses the Roman gods. It is Venus asking Mercury to essentially almost like put a bounty on her, and that she's looking for Psyche. And eventually Psyche ends up at her house, and she, in the one I read, she was heavily like whipped and beaten, like her head even got smashed on the ground and everything. But essentially, Psyche is forced to do 4 different tasks, which I'm not going to go into detail on, but she's forced to do these tasks. And these are impossible tasks, which she receives supernatural help in. The last one, she specifically receives help from Eros, who eventually, begs to be married to her, essentially to the other gods, and they support him. And she ends up in this myth immortal, and they have their child, and they're happily ever after. That's like the basics of this myth. Now, if I was looking at this myth, if I were to look at this, that there are things I can see. There are definitely glimpses and stuff that I can absolutely see in Electric Idol. And forgive me, I've not read this book in a while, so a lot of this will be vague memory. And if I am misremembering something, please let me know. I should also say that if I were to do a literary critique on this myth, if I were to write a paper, my thesis would reign on the fact that that Eros is that the original myth with Eros and Psyche, the thing with them, that we don't find out in the myth why she's not allowed to see him, though one can guess because he's a god. It might have some reasons with that. It also might have some reasons with Aphrodite. But I would say that the fact that he in the original myth that Psyche is not able to see him. Oh wait, no. Okay, so I would say that the fact that she essentially he's not seen throughout like Electric Idol, and I would say that it's more metaphorical. Essentially, my thesis would hinge on the fact that him not being seen is more metaphorical, because when you are seen, it has the connotation of also being accepted, and in Psyche showing him kindness the first time, for example, when she cleans up his helps him clean up his wound, he is and even in general is the first time he's seen, because before he's essentially Aphrodite's tool to in Electric Idol to get rid of people that she does not like, in the same way that in the original in the myth he is also Aphrodite's tool to get to do as they bid. And from my understanding, it looks like he also does what other gods want from time to time as well. So he is kind of more like a tool. So essentially, my thesis would hinge on the fact that he is a tool both in this retelling, in this reimagining, but also in the myth. I would also talk about. I would mention that also. I should say that I would say something along the lines of the fact that in this retelling, again, he's being seen by Psyche in a way that others have not, because he's mostly seen. He has friends, of course, but it seems different because she seems to fully accept him and see him for who he is. I would also argue that one of the scenes specifically, this is the scene that I based the text on the thumbnail that I put in this video. there is a sex scene where they have it where they have sex in front of a bunch of mirrors. I would argue that that mirror is those mirrors are like what finally show him, or is another form of him being seen, because in the mirror you can't fully like hide. You can't hide in a way your yourself. And also mirrors are basically a really good mirrors, both metaphorical and physical ones, are a good vehicle in stories for you and even the reader to see different shades and different sides of someone else, and generally speaking, like just to almost see like that reflection back. So now I can tell you one thing: if I were to write a paper of this in college, I probably wouldn't have done well, because while I can give you these symbolic things, and I could make comparisons to the myth I just read, and specifically like, hey, okay, Aphrodite was jealous and defended by Psyche in Electric Idol, kind of like in the original myth. Aphrodite was also offended by Psyche because she was getting more praise. And both of them, in the myth and in Electric Idol, are also both, again, use arrows as a tool, but they're also both, I would argue to say, narcissistic, because they want things a very specific way. But also all the gods are like that in a way. But yes, that is what even if I were to make these arguments, even if my arguments make sense, I assure you I probably wouldn't have done well, because it is not up to my standard. It would probably not end up to my standard in writing, and it would probably be more like C work and stuff. I mean, the one paper I was proud of in school was one I wrote out of spite, and I don't see how I could write this out of spite. So, and I don't even know if that would work, a second time. But yeah, there are, I think, a lot. There are like things that if you are looking for them, you will absolutely find them. I think they're more symbolic in a way, and that's good. They're more metaphorical, and that's fun. It did, of course, take, it was a bit different in that, she actually did see his face, and stuff. But she did get to know him. She did get to know him, and she started to see him, and he in turn also began to see her. And and throughout the story, we realize how they complement each other, and that's the fun part. I could also make the argument that just like, he's not seen in both in the original, in the myth. I keep saying the original myth, but in the myth specifically, and in the and in Electric Idol, Psyche also goes through something similar, in that in the myth she is seen mainly for her beauty, and they even called her, New Venus, because she's so pretty, and this virgin flower. Yeah, seriously, I'm pretty sure it said virgin flower in the translation I read. But essentially, she's very pretty, and people are worshiping the fact that she's beautiful, and she's seen as a new Venus or Aphrodite. And she in Electric Idol, Psyche is an influencer, and when you post things on social media, you see specific things of people, you see specific glimpses of them. In her case, she has a catered image that she gives that she offers in social media. She is not she's not fully like her full self. Instead, she has this image, like, again, I mentioned the whole fruity drinks or something like that in the review. I can't remember everything because it's been a little bit, and I had actually, and I'm just re-filming this outro. So yeah, something like fruity drinks in public, right? So she has a catered image and a way that she navigates in public that she would not navigate in private. So in a way, you could also argue that they're both not being seen, both in the myth and in this reimagining, again connecting them really well. So those are the things I kind of wanted to say. This is my thesis, and in a way, and this is the closest I'll get to a literary analysis of this story, and not even because I didn't go on a deep dive, but you know what, these are little things, and I'm sure there are things I missed because, like I said, I've not read Electric Idol since I recorded this review and I don't remember when this was. So, let me know. Do you have similar opinions? Have you read this book or will you read it? Comment that down below. And if you are interested in my content, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you're aware when I post videos. Also, if you want to check out my writing, I will link my website and Substack. I don't have as much writing on my Substack, but I'm still learning the quirks. But you know what? We'll figure it out. Also, you can support me here by purchasing my books. I have a debut fantasy novelette and a poetry collection, which also will be linked below. You can buy them from your favorite retailer, ebook and audiobooks, or you can get them directly from me on Ko-fi, where you can tip me that way as well if you would like to do it that way instead. And if you would like a critique of your unpublished manuscript, please email me. I would be more than happy to help you. And we'll discuss from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, consume stories. Bye!